Hi everyone. So can you tell I was having fun playing with my video editing software this morning? All right, so I am here today to show you a new card kit, or at least it's new to me. It's the December subscription box by Hedgehog Hollow, and it includes this fireworks stencil by Hedgehog Hollow, and then a whole bunch of not yet released Pretty Pink Posh products in a New Year's Eve theme. So the package comes wrapped in this cute little Santa Claus packaging, and then inside is this gold foiled package which holds all of the Pretty Pink Posh products. You get a whole bunch this month, and some little candies and specialty card stocks and some confetti sequins as well, and this cute little Christmas card by the people at Hedgehog Hollow. So let's get started and take a look at some of the items that are in the kit. So there's this Happy New Year standalone die by Pretty Pink Posh. And then there is a Happy New Year stamp set that has a champagne bottle, some champagne glasses clinking together, party favors, and then a matching die set to go along with all the images. And then this great confetti sequin mix by Pretty Pink Posh in gold, silver, and black colors. And then there are these two pieces of specialty cardstock in like a gray metallic and then a silver mirror card. And let's get started on card one. So for card one, I am using some glittery, sparkly products. We're going to use some Wow Midas Touch glitter embossing powder to emboss the images, and then we're going to color them in with metallic paints by Ombre. And to start, I'm just going to start stamping some of the images from the Pretty Pink Posh stamp set onto our card base. This is the oh so lovely Wow embossing powder in the color Midas Touch, which has some glitter flakes in it in both silver and gold. It's really, really beautiful, and I thought it would be great for New Year's Eve themed cards. So we're going to stamp a bunch of the champagne glasses around the edges of the card, and I'm just going to kind of twist and turn the stamp as I go along so that they're in all different directions. And then I'm going to get out my Midas Touch embossing powder again and add some embossing powder and glitter over all of those champagne glasses. And then we're going to heat set it. And as you can see, it's just gorgeous when the embossing powder melts. You can see the little flecks of glitter. It's just beautiful. If you don't have this embossing powder at home, I highly recommend that you pick some up if you are a fan of sparkly designs in your card. So now I'm going to get out my Tombow metallic paints and a water brush, and I'm just going to start filling in some areas of the embossed images. And for the champagne glasses, I'm going to use like all of the different golds, just so it's kind of pretty and interesting to look at, and because I like playing with all my toys, not just one of them. I mean, that's really the truth. I just wanted to use all the colors. So I'm just going to go around and color in each of the glasses, and whenever my paint gets a little bit dry, I just spritz it with a water bottle to reactivate it so that it's easier to pick up with my water brush. And I just want to talk to you for a second about the Wow Midas Touch embossing powder. So I saw this demonstrated in a W+9 video a few weeks ago in a technique that they call messy embossing, which I'm going to show you later on in this video in another card. And I was just amazed at how beautiful this embossing powder was. Normally I would shy away from using glitter embossing powder because I find that the glitter doesn't stick really well and gets all over, and if you're going to, you know, use any kind of distress ink or anything on the card, that it could just be a mess. But with this Wow embossing powder, even though there's glitter in it, the glitter pretty much stays put, and it just melts really, really beautifully into the embossing powder. So if you're a fan of sparkly cards, then I recommend that you check out this embossing powder. I think it's sold out right now. I was lucky enough to get a notification from Simon Says Stamp when the product came back in stock, and I must have been one of the, you know, lucky few people who picked it up in the first 10 minutes that Simon had it stocked. But you can find it at a bunch of different stores, maybe not right now, but just keep checking if you are a fan of sparkly embossing powder. All right, so I'm just gonna finish up the design here by adding a sentiment, and we're going to use the Pop Fizz Clink sentiment that's included in the stamp set, and we're going to stamp it with some clear embossing ink. And I'm using one by Lawn Fawn here. That's just what I had handy. And then we're going to get out our Midas Touch embossing powder again and emboss the sentiment with the embossing powder. So what I found is the embossing powder, it's good for sentiments, and it's also good if you want to outline your images and then color them in with watercolor, or I guess you could get out your Zig water brush markers as well and try that out. And then we're going to heat set the sentiment and then move on to the rest of the design. And I'm just cleaning off the little powder that I sprinkled on earlier with a large paintbrush, just so that the black cardstock isn't dulled. And we're going to use the Happy New Year standalone die that's in the kit for the sentiment, and we're going to add a second sentiment on the inside of the card. So that's what I'm doing here. This is the inside of the card, and this is cardstock called Golden Mosaic by Tonic. It's not included in the kit, it's just something that I had at home, and I really love the Tonic specialty papers, and I will break them out whenever I have an excuse to. So just finishing up the sentiment on the inside of the card, and I taped it down to my workspace just so it would stay put. And now we're going to put the Pop Fizz Clink focal panel onto a piece of silver cardstock by Tonic. This one is called Silver Satin, I think. And it's cut in an A2 size card size, and then we're going to attach it to our black card base, and then for the finishing touches just add some of those really, really beautiful Pretty Pink Posh sequins. And I'm just going to arrange them around the card just so that they look like maybe they're part of the bubbles too, or maybe there are some little pieces of confetti like blowing around in the scene. I don't know. Any of those I guess would work. And then I'm going to attach them with my glossy accents and use my little picker tool to pick them up and then place them right back down. And that is going to do it for our first card. So moving on to the second card. For the second card, we're also going to play with the metallic paints again, but I did this off screen since I think you get the picture, right, of how to use the embossing powder to outline the image and then just fill in the little areas in the image that you want to with a metallic paint. And I'm using some glitter cardstock, and I want this to kind of frame the hat focal panel. And I'm just going to rearrange my glitter paper so that you can see the edge of it peeking out from underneath the little hats. And then that is going to do it. Now I have my panel placed where I like it, and now it's time to add a sentiment. So this time we're going to use the Happy New Year stamp that is included in the kit, and we're going to stamp it with clear embossing ink, and then break out that Midas Touch embossing powder again, and then heat set all of it. And it's going to look really, really lovely and sparkly, just perfect for a Happy New Year card. And I'm going to brush off the excess powder from my anti-static powder tool that we used earlier, just so that it doesn't dull the black cardstock. And then finally, we're going to add some of the sequins from the Pretty Pink Posh sequin mix. And what I love about this sequin mix, it's not just the colors, but I love that the sequins are in all different sizes. So I think there are some that go down as small as like 3 millimeters, and then some of them might be 5 millimeters. So it's like, I think it's a mix of like 3, 4, and 5 millimeter sequins, and it just gives you a lot of options for your decorating when you're making cards. Okay, so that is it for card 2. For card 3, so now I'm going to show you that messy embossing technique that I learned from the W+9 video. And if you haven't seen the video, definitely check it out. Whoever did the video makes this really, really beautiful Christmas card using this technique, and it's just amazing. So we're going to start with a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock, and then get out our distress inks in Spun Sugar, Shaded Lilac, and Blueprint Sketch. And we're going to have the lightest colors towards the middle and then the darkest color along the edges. I'm just using a piece of paper as I go along so I don't leave finger marks in my ink blending. I think you could also do this with the Distress Oxide inks as well. It would probably give you a real beautiful look, but I have a love-hate relationship with them. They're just a little bit too messy for me, so I don't use them that often. And around the edges, I just put some chipped sapphire just to darken up the edges a little bit. And then I sprayed the whole panel with my water sprayer because we're going to put some fireworks on this background, and I thought that adding the distressing to it would make it just look like a beautiful, sparkly, smoky sky, perfect for some fireworks to be hanging out in. So this is the stencil that comes in the Hedgehog Hollow kit this month, and it's made by Hedgehog Hollow. And I'm just going to tape down my panel to the stencil and use some Distress Oxide ink, but I'm not using it for the ink color. I'm using it because the oxide ink is really good if you want embossing powder to stick to your image. And here I didn't have an embossing pen, so I couldn't kind of draw in where I wanted the embossing ink to go. So I'm like, well, why don't I just use my Distress Oxides? I can get that on the page pretty well. And then I'll have something for my embossing powder to stick to. So that's why I'm using this. I could have used any color. I just picked this one out because in the event that some of it does poke through the glitter, I thought it would match well with the fireworks in the sky, because it would kind of look like a little bit of a light and glow behind the fireworks. But it ends up not showing at all, which was what I had intended. So now I'm using that Midas Touch embossing powder again, and I'm just going to go over all the fireworks and then set everything with my heat gun. And as you can see, you don't see any of the Distress Oxide ink, but the embossing powder and glitter is sticking really, really well to the card. So there's a little hack if you ever find yourself with a stencil that you want to use and you want to emboss, but you don't have an embossing pen handy. You can just take some oxide ink and that will get the job done. Okay, so now to make this card messy, this is where the messy part of the technique comes in. So we're going to rub our ink pad, our clear embossing ink pad, all over the edges of the card. And then we're going to apply our embossing powder in kind of like a messy way. So it's like, I don't really care where it's going. I just want it to end up somewhere along the edges because I want everything to just melt out into this kind of messy, melted goodness that you'll see in a second. And it's going to take us a couple of times to do this until we get the look that we want. So here normally, you know, you would cringe if you got like little specks of embossing powder that got heat set on accident into your design, but here we want that. So we're just going to go over the panel again, and I added some more embossing ink, and then I'm going to add some more powder in different areas, and then we're going to heat set the whole thing again. And then we'll have a panel that we can work with that I think is sufficiently messy for the design that I was trying to achieve with this card. So okay, I'm just going over everything with the heat gun. And that looks good to me. So now we're going to work on our sentiment, and I'm going to use that Happy New Year stamp again and stamp it onto some black cardstock. And this is black licorice cardstock by Lawn Fawn, but I think any black cardstock would work well. We're going to use the Midas Touch embossing powder again and use it on our sentiment, and then heat set everything. And that is looking good to me. I'm going to brush off that extra powder, and then we're going to apply the whole panel to the base of an A2 size card base, and then we're going to use our corner punch or corner rounder to round the edges of the sentiment, get out some foam tape and pop the sentiment up, and then place it in the lower right hand corner. And then I'm also using some other images from the stamp set that I colored in earlier with Copic markers. And then I'm going to add some sparkle with a glitter pen. And that's it. So that completes card number 3. For card number 4, we're gonna do a little Copic painting here. And I'm going to use the champagne glasses stamp from the stamp set. I use Memento black ink, which is a Copic friendly ink, and then we're going to put some masking paper over that. And this is Simon Says Stamp masking paper, which is the best masking paper that I've been able to find. It holds up very well to very heavy color application. I use it all the time when I make these little Copic paintings. So we're going to just use a whole bunch of blues here. I think you could use any colors that you really like, and you just want to apply them in an ombre fashion so that the darkest part of the card is at the top. And the reason we want the top of the card to be so dark, or the panel to be so dark, is because I'm going to show you how to make some cool little bubbles that are going to float up from our champagne glasses and go up into disappear up into the upper part of the card. And to make the bubble stand out really well, you need really, really dark ink. But then I also wanted it to look like there's a little bit of a spotlight on our champagne glasses, so that's why I kept it nice and light in the middle. So this card would be a good one if you want to get some practice on evening skies, because it's a similar technique in blending the inks together in a circular fashion. Okay, so now let's make our bubbles. So we're going to start by just dotting our colorless blender in the pattern that we want our bubbles to appear. And we're going to make big bubbles and little bubbles, and the way that you make a big bubble is you just hold your pen on the paper for a longer period of time, and more ink will come out and it'll make a bigger surface area. And for the small bubbles, you just kind of dot the very, very tip of your pen down and then pick it up quickly. To add some depth to our bubbles, we're going to add some additional layers of Copic coloring. So we're going to go over some of them with a B10, and then over some of them with a B52, and then some with a B45. And you can use 1, 2, or 3 in each bubble. It doesn't matter. It'll give them all different depths. And then we're going to go over everything again with our colorless blender. And then this is where you're going to see the impact of adding those additional colors. It does something where it just makes the bubbles pop off the page, just makes them very, very three-dimensional, I think, using the technique of colorless blender, color, and then colorless blender again. Then we're going to add some accents with our white gel pen. I'm going to put a little curve in the corner of each of the bubbles, and then some dots we're going to add to our champagne glasses, and then also surrounding the bubbles, because the little dots are supposed to represent really, really tiny bubbles. And we're going to concentrate the bubbles closest to the glasses and then kind of have them get more sporadic as we go out towards the top of the scene. So now I'm just trying to figure out how I want to arrange my card, and I'm trying different techniques. So I had one thought, maybe I could use that champagne bottle that I had colored offline. And then I'm like, maybe I can use the hats, maybe I can use some of the party favors. And then ultimately decided to not go that route and just take the piece of gray, it's like a sparkly gray cardstock that's included in the kit. I cut off the edges of my little Copic painting panel and I backed it with some black glitter paper, cut out the Happy New Year sentiment using the Pretty Pink Posh die that's included in the kit. And I used some silver cardstock. You could use the silver mirror cardstock that was included in the kit. I unfortunately ruined mine in an unfortunate stick-it accident. I'll tell you about that another time. It's still too fresh for me to talk about. I'm just kidding. I was going to pop the sentiment up on foam tape, and I tried the technique of putting a layer of stick-it adhesive and then the foam and then the stick-it adhesive, and it was just a mess. It didn't work for me. So I just used a flat sentiment for the card, and I think it worked fine. So now to add some pizzazz to our card, we're going to fill in the glasses with glossy accents. This is one of my favorite tricks for making glass appear to be glass. Although in some ways it's kind of cheating, because with your Copic coloring you should be able to get that same effect. But I felt like cheating today, so I cheated. And then we're going to add some glossy accents to each of the bubbles too, just to give them a little dimension and make them pop. And this is also cheating. Had my coloring been perfect, I wouldn't have needed to use this step, but I just felt like it. You know, sometimes you gotta break the rules. And that is it. So those are the 4 cards using the December subscription box by Hedgehog Hollow. I hope that you enjoyed this video. You know, I thought that this month's kit was a really great kit. I don't know if I will buy others. I really bought it just because I love Pretty Pink Posh and I love the products that they included in this month's kit. And I just thought it would be a fun one to play around with. All right, everyone, have a great weekend. Let me know in the comments which of the cards you like the best. If you have used the Wow embossing powder, I would love to hear about your experience with it and other interesting ways that maybe you've used it in your card making. All right, I am signing off, and I will see you again in the next video.